Hey, everybody. Buzzsprout gets your show listed in every major podcast platform. You'll get a great-looking podcast website, audio players that you can drop into other websites, listening tools to promote your episodes, and more. Follow the link in the show notes. Lets Buzzsprout know we sent you, get you a $20 Amazon gift card if you sign up for a paid plan, and help support our show. It's Tommy Canale. Please go to our website, beforethelightspod.com. Over there, you can get all the episodes, show notes, contact information, how to reach out to me, and click the Patreon page to become members of our group and get the Extra 5 podcast. Follow us on Instagram at Before the Lights Podcast. And if you have a couple minutes, go over to Apple Podcasts. Please rate and review the show. 5 stars, nice comments will be appreciated. Welcome to Before the Lights, the show to find out how those in sports, music, and entertainment made their mark. Let's get started. Go get yourself a coffee or grab a drink. Tell your family, friends, neighbors, and strangers. It's time to have an in-depth conversation with our guest. Today, we have a native from Fowler, Michigan. He has coached college basketball at Pepperdine University, UNLV, and was at Findlay Prep, where he compiled a 192-9 record. He is currently in his 4th season at Southern Utah University. He is the head coach, Todd Simon. Coach, thanks for joining the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Excited to have you here. We're going to go back in time here a little bit and bring up to the current thing. So tell me what it was like growing up in Fowler, Michigan, which is a small town, and where it is basically on a map.
Yeah, growing up, a great place, with the best place on earth, and it was unbelievable community, about 1,000 people, just north of Lansing, Michigan, a little northwest, and sports fanatics, very hardworking blue collar community. Everybody kind of knew everybody, took care of each other, and it was a great place to grow up.
About how big is that town? What's the population?
About 1,000 people. It's about 1,000 people, and very small high school. I think there was 175. I think in the high school when I was there, and I'm not quite sure what it is now, but yeah, kind of a classic small town USA.
I understand you wanted to start coaching, or you knew you did, as early as age 6. Where did that come from?
When I was a kid, I used to enjoy, watching game playing and all that deal. But for whatever reason, I was drawn to, the strategy of the sport, the chess match, between the coaches and watching, Chuck Daly and those guys. And I can remember at the youngest age taking the G.I. Joe guys and putting them in formations and doing running stuff. And that was an intrigue of mine for whatever reason. And certainly, something that kind of probably was the gateway into what ultimately became my career.
You mentioned Chuck Daly. Who else were some of your early mentors that you looked up to when you first started really getting deep into this profession?
Probably, that obviously that was way back when I was young and watching the Bad Boys and doing the whole thing. And then, going through the Fab Five era with Steve Fisher, and Tom Izzo was such a, icon, especially for, rural Michigan guys. Here's a guy from the Upper Peninsula that is now the head coach at Michigan State, and that kind of opened the door that, hey, this type of stuff is possible. And, so kind of coming up through that way and studying, really just wanted to study coaches that were excellent across all sports. And, but now I was fortunate to watch some of Izzo's practices at that time and study him. And we had some great coaches at Fowler High School. Denny Smith, who was a neighbor of ours, won almost 300 games, and Scott Pache, who I played for, and guys that were really good. and so fortunate. I was very fortunate to have good examples to watch, and then certainly even moving on through up. Then I was really fortunate once I got to college level. I spent time watching practices all over the place, traveling and seeing how it could be done differently. And from watching a Tom Izzo work and his style to a Paul Westfall at Pepperdine and Lon Kruger, guys that are vastly different, but remarkably successful. Michael Peck was a huge influence on me, who went on from Findlay to the NBA G League and now is associate head coach at UTSA. And Dave Rice, and so I was able to take something from all of those coaches and blend it into what we do, and ultimately got to be yourself. But it was very, very good experiences. I've been very fortunate.
Got a great list there. And what I always find interesting, especially in any particular sport, is did you have somebody you looked up to or took a style that was outside the basketball, like another sport, and you're like, okay, this guy, I like the way he either runs his team or the style he runs, and you've taken something from another sport and made it part of what you do now?
No question. I've always felt, I've always been intrigued. I coached 1 year of JV football.
Okay.
But I've always been intrigued by the football side of things. I mean, you're managing such a large group of athletes, and you're compartmentalizing and delegating and doing a lot of whole part, teaching, and which is quite different than basketball. And so that it's I've enjoyed studying that side of it all the way from, obviously the elite of the elite, Saban and Belichick, anything that's ever come out on any of those guys, I've just loved to eat up and study that. A lot of military stuff. I enjoy the crossover there, in terms of development, person development, and team building and sacrifice and those lessons.
Agree. And as a former junior college coach, and that's why I always ask the question, because I always took stuff from football as well, just because of the structure and the way they run it. I was always fascinated by how they could structure such a large amount of people on a team and keep it so concise. So I feel your passion there. Coach, I understand you met your wife back in Fowler, and there was possibly a 2-on-2 game that basically for you said, okay, this is the one.
Yeah. You know what? She was 15. I was 16 years old. Basketball has always been something that a lot of what I do is revolved around, and she was a very good high school player, and that's kind of how I got to know her, and we got a chance to play some ball, and she could hoop, and I said, okay, let's see where this goes, and that's kind of where that all started. And you can fast forward, 23 years later, we got 4 kids, and the basketball's still right there involved in the heart of it.
That's fantastic. And on this show, Before the Lights, I always like to go through the good and the bad and some hurdles. And one of the hurdles that you have is battling Charcot-Marie-Tooth, which has been around since 1886. And for those people who have probably never heard of that, it's a hereditary neurological disorder that causes progressive loss of muscle tissue and touch sensation, and there's no cure for it. Coach, if you would kind of talk me through, understand your father had it, and if you would kind of talk me through the battles you have with that, the battles with you've seen your father, and when you were diagnosed.
Yeah, so it's different for everybody. It's in the family of muscular dystrophy. And, I knew I had it at a young age. When I was younger, I kind of thought, okay, well, I got frostbite. I was already self-diagnosing way before the WebMD era.
Okay.
But, so I'm like, okay, I got out in the snow too much, or I got frostbite. Like, I'm just making things up as they went along. But I knew there was something amiss just because a lot of times I couldn't feel my feet with loose sensation in hands and if you hit that funny bone, it would take hours to kind of come back. That sensation. And so I kind of knew there was something a little wrong. And then as a player, once I got in high school, you start to see your kind of skills deteriorate. All of a sudden you're dropping balls and losing balance, things that I knew wasn't right, and it was a little bit of a point of frustration. You just, okay, you know what, I need to probably go see what this really is, and so I kind of sat on it for probably 7-8 years, knowing something that wasn't right. So we got diagnosed with that, and like a lot of things, I think there's so much value in sports. I essentially said, you know what? I mean, there's no sense in self-pity, and this is something you can't control, which is a big pillar of what we're all about here is what are your controllables? You can control your attitude and effort. Well, I can't control this thing, but I can control how I respond to it. And, it kind of accelerated my shift. I was always strong academically, so I kind of focused there and got a full academic scholarship at the university level, and went that route instead of an athletic scholarship, so just kind of shifted focuses other ways in terms of being competitive, and went all in on the coaching angle, but it certainly poses some challenges. I'm not gonna go beat our guys right now in a game of 5-on-5, that's for sure. But I have to be elite at teaching and finding ways around it. And you adapt. I think there's some lessons that can be taught in guys. You end up surviving. So I can write with both hands. You end up doing a lot of things ambidextrously because if one's not working one day, you're gonna have to use the other one. And then luckily we got two. So just gotten smart over the years, the situation more than anything. So, but it's going good, and we just kind of keep plugging along. But it's a great reminder of all of the blessings that that we have every day. Especially I always say the worst part of my day every day is getting out of bed. I say liken it to stepping on glass for the first 15, 20 minutes, and then once that goes away, the worst part of the day is gone. And this is the rest of the day feels like $1 million. So it's not all bad. It's not really, it's a good reminder to not take any of these days for granted.
For sure. And glad to hear things are going well with that, and you're able to overcome and continue to go forward and adapt, as you said, and never would have thought, you would teach yourself to learn to write with both hands, but I'm sitting here as you're doing that, and I went to change the pen in my other hand. I'm like, okay, I can't even write my name. So I'll give you credit there for sure. How long did...
I'll put it this way. I might not be good with either hand. I'm not saying that it's spectacular. I would give my staff would certainly tell me that neither one of them are very good. So.
Coach, you attended Central Michigan and received a double major in sports management and then informative systems in 2003. And then in 2002, 2003, you got your first coaching job at Harrison High School in Harrison, Michigan as a JV head coach, assistant varsity coach. Go back to there. What were your thoughts on A, getting your first job, and B, did you feel like, okay, you could light the world on fire, so to speak?
Yeah, I think, I really enjoyed that time. Everybody needs to be the boss of something at some point, so they can get a perspective of what that is. Even, GAs, like go coach a 7th grade team, go coach a 9th grade, whatever. Go with your students are staring at you, and you need to have the answers, and you need to be able to communicate it quick without losing their trust or having any sort of hiccup. You need to work on your craft from a leadership standpoint. But at that time, I didn't know what the future would come. I just knew I wanted to coach. I wanted to get a head start. The head coach of that program was a gentleman named Craig Smith, who was from Fowler and was doing a great job there. And I wanted to learn from him. And got a good chance, and certainly learned a lot from that season. As much from that first season coaching, JV players, than many years I've been in the profession ever since. You just get so much of a different perspective, and we weren't great. And I think that's what made it such a learning experience is you learn, okay, how am I going to create offense? How am I going to get these players better every day and so that we can have a chance to compete? And you start to realize it's a whole lot more about them than it is X and O's and what you're saying or what you have in your head. That stuff doesn't matter. It's what they're able to do and what you can teach them and get them to do in performance fashion.
How did you get from being at Harrison High School to being a volunteer assistant coach at a Division I program in Pepperdine University at one of the most beautiful campuses I think I've ever been around?
Yeah, so we went from there I was kind of a video guy, GA, just kind of run at Pepperdine. Just kind of do a little bit of everything, and kind of just kind of started it, I guess, when we moved out west, and so I spent some time going to practice, seeing Ben Holland, Henry Bibby, kind of going up and down the little coast, see as many practices as I could. Not really wasn't taking a networking angle out of it because I wasn't sure, where this was going to go at the time. But wanted to I enjoyed it. That was kind of and so Pepperdine was very close by, and I was so intrigued with Coach Westfall's style and philosophy, which was, very other extreme, very offensive oriented, very calm, type of practice. And I was interested in being a part of something like that. Is kind of an other side of the spectrum from what, watching Coach Izzo's practices and stuff like that kind of coming up. And so it kind of gave a whole nother way of doing it. And so I just kind of hung around and they said, well, if you'd like, you can kind of volunteer here and help out. And that's kind of what we did. And I was lucky. Wasn't there very long and then shifted gears. My wife got a teaching job in Las Vegas. And I was fortunate kind of right before that next season to latch on and kind of get in the video room for Coach Kruger at UNLV. It was a short stay, but it was a very good experience, watching Coach Westfall and his brilliant mind.
Did you have to have something else to supplement income being you were a volunteer at Pepperdine?
Yeah, I did. And so, on the side, I was fortunate that I had options having, I worked full time in college and I was on full academic scholarship and, I had the stipend and all that sort of stuff, and so I had created a pretty strong egg to sit on that I could tap into, to give me a little freedom to kind of pursue what I wanted for a little while. But then ultimately I was doing some, consulting work and sales work for a company out of India that kind of let me build my own schedule in terms of selling some computer software systems and, it's a little sales job on the side. So, there's entrepreneurial spirit. You can always find ways to supplement your income. And that's what we kind of did. And that really kind of, be honest with you, from 2002 till really 2007, didn't make a whole lot in the game of basketball. And I tell young guys, you're going to have to figure out a way to grind long enough and get by long enough without expecting much in return in this profession, because it's just the way it is. There's so many people knocking on the door, and you better be really good if you do get a shot and know your stuff and be able to figure out a way to add value. And that's your way of getting into business. You know what I mean? The year 2, year 3 year 4, you might not get your break until years down the line. And I was fortunate once I did kind of get a break. Things started to break quick in a lot of fashion. But it took a little while to earn a living in basketball.
I agree with you 100%, and I've shared the same advice to young coaches that are wanting to pursue in this profession. And I've always said college basketball coaches make some of the best salesmen. And when I always find out other jobs, it's like you said, selling computer software. Other people have sold insurance. And I'm like, we're used to selling our campuses and our programs, so selling becomes part of what we do.
Well, I tell you, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, in doing what I was doing, there was no Rolodex, there was no anything. It was, hey, if you want to do this, we'll pay you X, Y, Z, and all right, good luck. And if you don't sell anything, you don't get anything. And you that's kind of a lot of parallels in recruiting. I tell guys, I mean, I might have to send out 5,000 emails that I all found, and you might have to make 4,000 minutes of phone calls trying to chase down leads, and it's kind of recruiting, quite frankly. And so it was good to have to go through something like that.
Going back, you mentioned you got underneath Coach Kruger at UNLV for a couple of years and got in the video room. If you would kind of expand, Coach, on where you started at UNLV, and then when you left before you went to Findlay, what was your final responsibilities like at UNLV then?
Yeah, so I got in the door doing film breakdown, helping out, working guys out, just kind of being a catch-all, grad assistant type, video assistant role. And I was very lucky. We had such a phenomenal staff, a bunch of guys that have become head coaches. In fact, the first year's staff there, Coach Henson's now the head coach at UT San Antonio. Coach Menzies, was New Mexico State and UNLV. Kind of go right down on Coach Hill is at Rio Grande Valley, and Coach Peck was in the G League and at Findlay Prep with us, and so you had a whole bunch of outstanding basketball minds and coaches. I said that was the master's degree in X's and O's, and probably running a program was those 2 years. You started to, when you're doing film stuff, you start to see the game, you start to understand, okay, this is what a Hall of Fame basketball mind never gets to do that he probably deserves in Coach Kruger. And you start to see what he's doing, and you're like, okay. And I use those lessons to this day. And that kind of propelled into everything else from there. And then, Findlay Prep, we was built on the back of a cardboard box. I mean, we just sat there with a blank slate and said, how are we going to create this thing? And, worked for Scott Beaton for a year. And then Coach Peck, we really got going with it, and then took that over after him. But it was, I lived with the players.
That's what I understand at Findlay.
Yeah. Yep. So we had, the initial groups was 12 players in a 5-bedroom house with my wife and I.
Wow.
And you want to talk about in education, we going into that thing, okay, I'm going to be a coach living with these players, and we got players showing up with Pokemon cards, and they're 14, 15, some of them young, and next thing you know, you're way more of a parental figure, and then at age 25, 26, then you are a coach for the off hours. And a very good lesson in what players hear and what coaches say are two very different things. and something that a coach can say 3 months before that might have just not even been a thing to a coach, a kid will hold on to and let fester and fester and fester. And you learn those things when you're living with them off hours, and it's a little, different relationship. And I was very lucky to kind of see that side of that age.
How did you, I'm sure you had a conversation with your wife of going, we're going to go live with the players. How did she respond to that? Was she open to it, or did you have to kind of talk her into agreeing to it?
No, she's, if there's a first ballot Hall of Fame wife, she's it. I mean, she would say, hey, let's move to LA. Sounds good. Let's do it. And she was a high school teacher, and then from there we moved to Vegas, and then we're going from UNLV. It's like, okay, here's an idea. What do you think of this? And she was like, let's do it. So, she's very open-minded. I think she loves the experiences that we've kind of created together in this world of basketball, and getting to know players and helping young people. I mean, that's her at her core. And so it's been pretty cool. Yeah. I mean, I don't know that I probably found the one in a million that deals with what we're doing here. But yeah, no, it's been awesome. It's been a fun journey, and now with 4 kids too, they're all in on it. We're truly a basketball family type of deal.
Nice. How many years did you live with the players?
For 5 years.
5 years. Wow.
Yeah. Yep. We had players with us for 5 years, and so it was quite a deal. I mean, a lot of those guys turned into NBA players, which was fun, and a lot of late night, counseling, a lot of phone calls, a lot of
I'm sure,
a lot of stuff going on when you're talking these 17 to 20-year-olds and that time of their life. Usually a lot of them 1,000 miles from home and going through it for the first time. So it was time intensive and emotion intensive, but I wouldn't change it for anything.
Before we go deeper into Findlay and some of the players you coached, one of the things I found pretty impressive is you had 100% graduation rate. And I'm a big academic guy, and I've always have a motto of no grades, no play. And if you would, Coach, kind of talk to me about, some of the struggles you have at Findlay when it's not a traditional high school where kids are in school and then they come, to play, and you guys have a national travel schedule. So having 100% graduation rate is very impressive. You kind of hit on that for me.
Yeah. Not only that, they all qualified. That was the most important to us. They were all qualifiers for NCAA. We didn't take guys that were academic messes and say, hey, okay, you got a 20 a game and good luck in junior college or whatever. And junior college is a great route for a lot of folks, but it wasn't our model. We wanted to give the guys that carrot of playing Division I basketball and push them to achieve academically to reach that. And I think it's part of the reason why we were so successful, and those kids have become also successful, is because it translates. That discipline translates across all across the board. But it was tough. I mean, it's such a tight circle there. In terms of especially the times when I was living with them, you had no way to get out. You had nowhere to run.
Yeah.
So if you didn't turn an assignment in, the teacher was in our office very quickly saying, "Hey, so and so didn't turn an assignment in." They understood our level of monitoring. I mean, it was every single class, every single day, they had to, essentially in their little planner, and they'd have to turn it in every day. At the end of the day, this is what I have to do. Here's what my grade is in my class. I'm in good standing, and the teacher would sign it. Every class, every day for 7 years. And we had the NCAA would come in all the time, like they do the reviews of all private schools. And they'd come in and we'd tell them what we do. And they wouldn't believe it. And then we'd pull out gigantic binders that would line, 10 feet and say, here, we've kept every single sheet on each one of these kids for the entire year, and really trying to prove a point for the student athletes that, hey, this is how organized you can be, and you can have a lot of success in life if you are.
Agree. And some of the things that happened at Findlay, that we're going to move forward here. You were 3 ESPN National High School Invitational Championships. You had 5 seasons with 7 NBA guys. The 2012-2013 season went 35-1. You had a 54-game winning streak, 82 home game winning streak. And some of the guys that were on some of those teams were the number 1 pick in the draft, Anthony Bennett, Rashad Vaughn, who ended up being the number 17th pick. Nigel Williams-Goss was part of Findlay Prep. So it was a loaded team. And then from there, you go 3 years as an associate head coach at UNLV under Dave Rice, who you mentioned. And in the 2014 class, Coach, was ranked number 5 by Rivals.com. If you would kind of talk to my listeners about some of the recruiting struggles when you're putting together, and you did it at Findlay. That's why I read off some of those names. And then you did it again at UNLV, is putting together not just recruiting classes, but high-ranked recruiting classes. What are some of the struggles with that?
Well, it's time intensive. That's the first thing. If you're not willing to put the time in, you got no chance. So there's sacrifices to be made, and there's so many days, even now, where we're on the phone until, good portion of every hour of the day until sundown. And you're trying to get players, and and it's all relationship based. It's gotten easier, for a lot of the people that we've talked to, communicated with, that maybe sent a player to us and they had success, and now they have another player a few years later that they think is of the right quality, that they go back to the well, and I take pride in being truthful and honest, and making sure that these guys have a good experience, because that's how you have sustained success in recruiting, is by doing right by people, and the ones that lie and cheat and steal and shortcut guys and cast them aside, it's very tough. It's very tough, and so it's kind of been our MO, is try to do right by these guys, get them better. Players know when they're getting better or not, and then people know if they see growth in their son or their player, and that's what we try to focus on.
In January of 2016, you become UNLV's interim coach for 17 games. When they bring you in and tell you, all right, Coach, you're going to take over this team for the remainder of the year, what went through your mind? Excited, scared, doubt? Where'd you go?
No, it was pretty wild. It wasn't probably anything I had in my view for any time soon, especially coming from being a relatively young assistant. I was 35 at the time, and I just been in my 3rd year of Division I basketball as a full-time assistant. So in the way I thought this was going to go in my brain, I enjoyed being an assistant. Like, I'm not a guy that just sits there and says, boy, I have to be a head coach. I have to be a head coach. That's not been my thing. Like, I wouldn't have applied for any head coaching jobs for quite some time, because I enjoyed being part of that building process, being part of a team, and all that entails. And so the whole thing was a little bit surreal, I guess. But so process focused that I think my mind just immediately shifted to, we lost 3 games in a row. How are we going to win our next game? I think that was immediately where my brain went to. And let's get in the gym. I think when they told me, and then there was we had practice that evening, and we had to get back in the gym. And it was all right. Let's get back and get in this practice plan, and let's fix some of our ills. And that was immediately my focus was, okay, we got to give these players the best chance to win and the best experience we can for the rest of the season. and we'll let the chips fall where they may. I never campaigned for the job. I knew they were doing a national search. I didn't want to go through any of that stuff. I didn't think it would be fair to the players to create distractions. And these are guys that, that I brought in and a lot of them and gave my word that we were going to give them a good experience. So that was where my head was focused.
After that, you now are, as he said at the top of the show, you're in your 4th year at Southern Utah University as the head coach. Not so much the process, Coach, but what was the feeling like for you and your family when the job at Southern Utah was offered to you?
Yeah, it was an interesting deal. I mean, rewinding a little bit, and I think it was January 12th. We were named the interim coach at UNLV, and on January 22nd, we got on a little win streak. Right, right after we got the job, playing pretty well, and then January 22nd, I was reached out to by some search firms and whatever that goes on, and all of a sudden I had head coaching experience. 10 days later, and we're lucky that all those games were on TV and to get a little exposure. And there were a few schools that had put out some flyers, and Southern Utah being one of them. And but once the season ended, I just felt like it was time for a change. There was a lot of negativity surrounding UNLV, a place that we loved, but I wasn't sure it was at the time with everything that was going on there that it would be in our family's best interest to hang around, and my son was just getting into kindergarten and all that good stuff. So I said, okay, let's look to branch out and to go a little different way with this. And so in Utah presented itself, and I felt good about it. It was probably naive and kind of an old school process, with the AD and myself, really, and there wasn't a lot of other stuff around it. I had no idea who. I didn't do a whole lot of. We drove up, checked out the community, and so yeah, we have some interest in the job. We interviewed and we're hired. It was pretty old school and basic. Nothing like people would believe to think, and it wasn't a whole bunch of people involved. It wasn't like one of these, hey, make a call campaign or politics for the job. I had no idea who else even interviewed. I just like, hey, let's take a look, and if we can do it and they can commit to it, let's give it a go. So, and here we are. 4 years later, we've tried to build this thing up and turn it around, and so we've enjoyed our time here for sure.
And Bill, you have this, and you took over a program that needed to get turned around. You've done just that. The second year, you win 13 games and get to the semifinals of the Big Sky Conference, and then the third season becomes pretty much a record year for the school, so to speak, under your tutelage, with qualifying for the postseason for the first time since 2001. They win their first postseason game in D1 history in the College Insider Tournament. Did you start to feel like, hey, things are turning and there's some accolades happening and these are great, but, there's still a bigger picture down the road of getting to the NCAA tournament? But that third season, did you start to feel like everything we're doing here is now starting to get in motion?
Yeah, and we had some trouble our first year. We kind of, we had a lot of culture to kind of get the way we wanted it to. And they had some academic issues and things like that. And then, so you're kind of changing the tone a little bit year one, year two. We brought an influx of talent, kind of started the process of getting where we wanted to be. And then, like these last couple of years, we've getting back-to-back postseason invites and winning some tough road games. You beat Nebraska. We were competitive with the UCLAs of the world. Even a couple of years ago, we're down one with 8 minutes left at Michigan State. It was a top 2, I think, in the country at the time. We're all of a sudden a competitive Division I program, and we're pretty proud of where we've kind of taken this thing. At one point, the year before I got here, I think they were the last ranked team in Ken Palm And now we're up to 161, which is, about 190 spot jump. We've kind of slowly progressed up to, and we just got to keep continuing to make those jumps. But we're just very process oriented. Let's just kind of keep getting players and getting them better and see what chips fall at the end type of thing.
And because of everything that was happening and teams going forward, every year things are happening. You get above 500. And like you said, 2 back-to-back postseason invites. Now you receive an extension through 2023, 2024. So, Coach, you have to feel now like, okay, not only do I feel comfortable here, but I have some roots grown here and I can continue to grow and I'm locked in for a while. So you have a future there and that could lead to whatever. But right now, what's the focus for Southern Utah under your tutelage going forward for the next few years?
Well, we got to win a championship. I mean, that's our goal. I mean, we have to, we have to make the next leap. We were pretty solid this year. We were kind of injury riddled and had to get through some stuff. Wasn't it was a little bit of a wild card year going in, and I felt like it kind of finished on a high note and a little incomplete. But we're excited about this coming year with a lot of starters back, and now the most important thing is here. The group. The program needs to kind of start becoming self-sustaining where this experienced group of players are developing the next group of players within the program and keep this thing kind of proceeding forward. That's kind of where we're at, but we've got to compete for a championship here. That's the next big thing. And it's not going to be easy. And we're certainly not at the top of the league in terms of resources or any of those type of things. And none of that matters. We've got to make our 5 players between the lines better than the other team's 5 players between the lines and keep it that simple and block everything else out. So, that's our hope is the next few years we can really compete for a league championship and get the NCAA tournament.
The way it's going, I would not be surprised to hear the Southern Utah Thunderbirds name read on Selection Sunday, which I'm sure will make you happy. But my last question, Coach, before I let you go, is small school somewhat in Cedar City, Utah. What's the challenges of getting the guys that you feel can take you to the next level to go, I'll come to Southern Utah, and maybe an area they've never even seen before?
Yeah, very, very, very tricky recruiting process. We're not a name brand school, so to speak, from coast to coast. We don't have a tremendous pool of players. It's a fairly rural area here up in the mountains, and from really 2.5 hours in any direction, there hasn't been a ton of Division I talent over the last 30 years. So a little bit on an island, and without a lot of name brand recognition. So we're having to work extra hard. But we kind of comb the world. We were with a lot of international players, transfers. We've done very well with transfers. I mean, we've had a transfer that had the second highest scoring average leap in the history of college basketball. We've had guys become all league that didn't get a lot, burn where their previous stop was, and these guys have been going on and been able to have professional careers overseas. So those are the things that we kind of hang our hat on. And we've got a great facility. We do have a great arena. We have a great strength coach with brand new weight facility and new film room, and we have a lot of stuff going in our favor. The people here are fantastic. So that part of it is our calling card, is the relationships, and people that want to have a good experience and want to get better at basketball. This is what it's about. And so it kind of weeds out a little bit of the guys that need the stuff that doesn't impact success. If you need catering service 5 nights a week, and you need a 9-court practice facility and all that sort of stuff to get better, then that's probably a little more than we want to offer here. So we want guys that want to be real players, and we want to develop them.
Coach, I wish you nothing but the best. I'm looking forward. Hopefully there will be fans soon back in college basketball. And being I'm in Las Vegas, I'm going to make a trip up and catch you guys play and watch you in action. But I wish you nothing but the best. And thanks for being on the show today.
No, thank you so much for having me, and I really enjoyed it. And it should be a pretty fun season upcoming. We're really excited about it. So look forward to tipping it up and getting our guys back on campus. Hopefully everyone is healthy and safe here real soon so we can get back going.
I agree. I'm waiting for ball just like everybody else. Everybody, if you head over to want to get on the Patreon member for the Extra 5 podcast, you can do that at our website, beforethelightspod.com. Show notes are also at the website. You can just click on the episode page and get to the show notes you're looking for. Follow us on Instagram at Before the Lights Podcast. Thank you for listening to Before the Lights. I'm Tommy Canale. We will talk to you next time. Until then, everybody, stay safe, be healthy, keep smiling.